In this video, we will continue to talk about creation of objects and geometries in 3D Studio Max. So we're just getting started with the basic things. And I also suggested in the previous video how you can get some 3ds Max sample files that you can study, you can explore, you can use to understand better how the software works. So you can see here in this website here called knowledgeautodesk.com. You will find these samples. You can download them. There are many different files from different years like 2018, 2020, 2017, 2015, and so on. So this will be downloaded as a series of folders that inside are going to contain many different 3ds Max files. So in this video, we're also going to see how we can import not only and insert not only 3ds Max scenes, but also other external formats like FBX or GLTF. Now, every time you're going to open up a scene or you're going to create a scene, or well, anytime you're going to see this means that some textures there are missing. So usually when you import a model, you will also have some textures if the model contains materials with textures. And if you are missing those textures, you need to tell the software where to get it. So if you know where those textures are stored, you need to specify the folder or the external file path. Now, in this case, the external files are the textures. So you need to locate the folder and you need to connect it to your scene. So in this case, could be, for example, here the samples files folder. And since I'm using a character from these sample files, the texture probably stored, you can see here, inside a textures folder. So in my case, I imported a character in the previous video, so I will go for the folder where this character is, and so I can use this path. I can add this path, and you can see now there are no more missing external files. So I have solved this problem. So anytime you see this panel appearing missing external files, it means that probably, well, most of the time there are missing textures. So the material that you're creating is missing some textures and also the character. And you can see the character right there inside the scene. It's kind of a animal thing, and I think also needs to be adjusted a little bit. So every time you insert something from the external, you need to make sure that everything is working good, like the textures and the geometries first of all, and then you also have sometimes animation. You can see there is some displacement on the main character and the eyes. So many times when you import also a single character, a single object that would be composed by many models, so you need to assemble those different parts correctly. So this is what I'm doing here, using the different views to adjust and fix this mesh. And probably I've done it right here. So now everything looks better. So make sure that you fix and address the issues every time you import or merge from the external. So when you use 3ds Max file, you can merge. So you can use 3ds Max and insert it into your current scenes. And again, in the sample files here, you find a lot of stuff that you can select, you can merge, you can open separately, whatever you want. But it's really interesting, again, to study how things are done by professionals. So you can see here this character is really, it has a lot of details. It's been sculpted and painted. Now, I'm going to make some example again of importing assets from other website. So we can import here using render people. And in this case, we have the 3ds Max file. We also have Maya, Cinema 4D, SketchUp, and other software. And if you're interested in other software, you will find them in the channel. So you can find other videos about other 3D modeling tools or Unreal Engine, Rhino, and other Modo and other software. So this website here in particular uses all the software. So you will find these models ready for other software ready to use. So if you go in free models, you can download here. And well, let's try also to download some animation. So in this case, we will have the model, so the geometry, the texture, so the material applied with the images, and then we're gonna also have the animation. So you have the native 3ds Max file, so I'm gonna download in this file format directly so that I can merge it. So remember, there is a difference between merging and importing. When you have 3ds Max files, you can open them directly or you can merge them. When you have other type of formats, you need to import them inside 3ds Max. So another really interesting website is Sketchfab, and if you're interested in these websites, you will find also other video guides and videos in our channel. So just type what you're looking for in the search bar of the channel and you will find what you're looking for. If you don't find it, write in the comments and we're gonna create a video. Ask for assistance, we're gonna give you assistance, or you can also write your suggestions in the comments. Now another interesting website is Polyhaven, and another one is TurboSquid. These are the most popular website where you can get external and also native 3D objects that you can import then or merge into 3ds Max. So we saw some sample files in the previous video, and these are all external resources that you can use. And I've already saved some of these assets in my computer, so I will show you some examples. We're gonna start with these render people, and I'm also gonna insert a link in the description for render people. And first you need to extract, and now we can see we have other zipped folder. We need to extract those as well. So I'm gonna extract the Sophia animated model. I will extract it right here, and you will find again a folder containing the textures and the various 3D objects in various formats. So every time, or well, most of the time, you will always find the object and the textures in a specific folder. So text means textures right there. So make sure that when you move the object, you also move the textures, or that you remember where your textures are. So if we right click and go to the properties, we can see which format it's using right here. So this is FBX. So it's using a generic format, which we need to import, but we can also find the character in 3ds Max format already. Now this is just a preview, and we will find this in Corona renderer, V-Ray render, and also native, which is going to be Arnold, and it's going to be the software that the render engine that we're going to use in this course about 3ds Max. So I'm just opening up the file directly. So if I have a 3ds Max file, just double click and open it. I can just do that. Or again, I can merge it into the scene. Now in this video, I would not talk about V-Ray and Corona, but you will find courses in the channel and lessons in the channel about Corona, V-Ray, also other render engines. So again, if you have some questions, you need assistance or directions, please write in the comments. So native means that it's going to use the native render engine, which at the moment is Arnold. So if I double click here, all right, I can see everything. Everything is already set up for us. This is the best possibility that we have, the best option, so that everything has been already set up for us. So we already have, let's go and check the rendering first. So if I go to render setup, I can see, well, this one here is using Corona. So you can also switch from Corona to Arnold, but you need to change the materials and so on. But this just to show you that if you have a native file, you can just open it up and everything is going to be there: texture, animation, geometry. So that's the texture folder right there. So if we want to give it a look, we can see these are our unwrap texture. We're going to talk about unwrap mapping, which means that you're going to take each part of your character and it's going to be placed in one particular point of this UV map, which is a 2D image basically, with your character that is going to be like flattened on this surface. We're going to talk about that in another video, in a specific video about materials and mapping. Right now we're going to stick to the importing and merging topic, and also we will see some more objects that we can create in 3ds Max. So I'm going to delete some of these assets just to make some room, and make sure that you delete each single part of the objects that you import. Otherwise they're gonna stay there and they're gonna appear in renderings. They're gonna give you a bit of trouble later, so make sure that you always have the total control of your scene, and you can do it with the outliner there on the left side. That's a really important panel. So right now I can merge because I have a 3ds Max file, so I can directly merge into this scene the native or whatever other version is there. Now when you merge, you can decide what to merge and what not. So you have this list. You can select here from this list what you want to bring inside the scene and what you want to leave it behind. So you also have filters. You can isolate shapes, geometries, 3D geometries, or bones in this case, because we have an animation, so we have a bone system that can animate our character. And so there it is, pretty easy, pretty fast. Now if I zoom in, I can see if I have some issues with textures and things like that. So and it's also the correct size, which is going to be like approximately 1 meter and 60 or 70. So it's already in scale, and but it's showing us total black right now. So it's completely looking black. Perhaps there are some issues with the textures. Now the most important thing is that the character looks good when we render. So the best test that we can do is that we can render that, but we can see there is the animation. So if I press play, I can see the model is animated, so I can see it moving a little bit. I can see the polygons there that are moving inside the viewport, so animation is there, so that's fine. Now let's try to also find out if the textures works. So I'm going to try to locate again those missing textures. So I either like close and reopen the scene, or I can go to the customize tab here, and we need to see here in the customize panel the paths. So configure project paths, this is where we need to go, and we consider there is a panel concerning the external files, and well, also other information here that can be up, but here is where it's getting right now the external files. So we need to locate the folder where those textures are stored. If it doesn't do that automatically, we need to do it ourselves. So perhaps you change the name of the folder or you change the location. This could cause this issue right here. So I know that they are inside the folder that I have downloaded. So this is where I'm gonna go to find those textures. So we'll just navigate and go into the folder and locate the text folder right there. So I want to link this folder, use the path of this folder, and you can also select the the folder and add the sub paths. And now let's say OK. Now, if we go to asset tracking here, which is another panel that you can find there, so preferences, asset tracking tool, the file menu, well, that's gonna show you if everything it's actually been tracked and connected and linked. So again, this is a like management part of the software here, which we can check anytime. So now textures should be there, but let's also try to change the view. So let's go to materials and let's go to realistic materials with maps. Let's select high quality. Let's make sure that we are in the correct view mode. So it's gonna be, so if you say clay, well, that's good for sculpting, but not for texturing. So make sure that you are in high quality, default shading, and also that materials and maps are on. You can also do an interactive rendering so that you can actually see if the textures are there. So that's again the one final test that you can do. And you can see that textures are actually there at the moment. So we have everything. We have geometry, we have textures, we have animation, but I don't see them in the high quality. So let's go here to materials and do realistic materials with maps. So if they don't show up, you may want to force this option right here. So let's go for realistic materials with maps, and there you go. So sometimes you just need to wait that the textures are uploaded. So don't give up. Try all these different possibilities. Textures should be there now. And so every time you are having these troubles, you can use these panels and techniques. And now we can see it's animated. Textures is there, geometry is there, material is already there for us, so we don't need to do anything. And now this is the best scenario where everything has been already done for us and we don't need to do anything. But in other cases, we need to create our character with the sculpting tools, painting tools. We need to create our material with the textures. We need to create animation, everything from scratch. Now you can see that it's a little bit more advanced, but with practice you can get there with a little bit of experience. Now I'm going to maximize the view, and also let's see some more about the objects in 3ds Max. So you have a lot of models that you can use. These are not advanced models. So we saw the standard primitives, but here in the creation tab, we also have a list of different things we can create. So we're gonna see a lot of these during the course, little by little. Now we're gonna just give a look to some of the extended primitives. So let's go for the first one here. It's gonna be a particular shape different from the primitives. Now some of these I don't really use them too much, but there are others that are pretty interesting. So again, I can rotate, I can scale, I can move the object around, just I did with the primitives. So transformations will be helpful, but you can use also those snaps there to rotate, scale, and position things a little bit more with accuracy. We have this torus knot, which is similar to the torus, but it's more like a knot. And I can also change here. Always experiment again with the various parameters. So try to play around with all these parameters that you find here. I always play around because sometimes I'm gonna discover new things that I didn't imagine were there. So this looks like now like a spring or a bracelet thing. So really, you should always go there and experiment with all these values. Never know what to find there. Okay, this is another extended primitive right here. Let's see something a little bit more useful. For example, we have some chamfer geometry like the chamfer box. and the chamfer cylinder. Now, this is going to be a box like a standard box, but you can also add, you can see there, a little chamfer. So the corners will be like rounded instead of being straight. Now, in my experience, straight corners are never realistic. So you should always add a little bit of chamfer, a little bit of roundness on the corners. Just a little is going to be better. So if I create the same exact box using a standard box and a chamfer box, you can see that the chamfer box looks a little bit more realistic, but especially because it has that rounded corners right there. That is going to help it to be more realistic. Same thing with the chamfer cylinder. Now, if you change the chamfer part, you increase the chamfer part a lot, you will get really other shapes that can be helpful. So again, go there and experiment. Now you can also add just a single chamfer if you want, but if you increase the segments of the fillet right there, chamfer, fillet, rounded corner, call it how you want it, you can see that you can do it straight or you can do it rounded if you increase the number of segments inside that rounded part. Now we also see some faces here. This is gonna be not good for rendering if you want perfect cylinder. So just activate edge faces so you can see what you are doing here. You can see we are increasing the number of polygons, and we should do that also on the sides if you want to have a nice rounded cylinder there with nice rounded corners. We should increase the number of segments, and that's going to increase the number of polygons. It's going to create heavier object, but it's going to look better. So don't exaggerate, always be balanced and find out what's the correct number of segments. Don't place too many segments, otherwise your scene will be stuck in really heavy shapes that probably are not useful. And again, I'm going to create some of these other extended primitives. We have the capsule, we have various shapes that you can extrude here, like L shape or C shape, or you can see here C extrusion can be changed in many different ways. You can give it a different thickness and can become like a pillar or a beam or something like that. So you can really, again, experiment with these. Just show you a few. And when I select all of these, you can always go back and change them. These are all parametric objects that you can always go back and fix and adjust to your needs. So go there in the modify tab anytime you want to modify it. And again, this is parametric modeling. We're gonna see later the polygonal modeling. And when you turn on edge faces, it's gonna help you to understand the number of polygons that you're using. So there are other types of geometries here. For example, you have compound objects also, which are complex, a little bit more complex. And you have one of the most important here is the Boolean object. And when you select an object, you will also have extra compound objects that you can use. So depending on what you want to do here, you can select different compound objects, and this one here is also pretty interesting. It's called scatter. So I can pick a distribution object and an object to be distributed. So it could be that pyramid there. So I'm gonna go a little bit down and select the distributed objects and the number of polygons, and how many duplicates I want, and how I can distribute it on this surface. And there you go. So I can scatter these around. This could be helpful for trees or vegetation or like situations where you need to scatter things around a surface. So you can change the way this will be scattered around. It could be like a grid, a more precise position, or could be like randomized more. So just go there and as usual experiment. So you can see the more you go forward, the more complex things are gonna be. So, and also here it's about the polygons that and the faces that we have in the distribution object. So also be careful not to increase too much when you duplicate things, because all the polygons will be like multiplied. So all the faces will be multiplied and everything will be heavier and heavier. And if you don't have a really strong graphic card, you should really be careful on the number of polygons that you use. Now in the modified app there, you can also access the operands, which means that you can trace back the original pyramid. And if you change that original object which you used to create the scattered effect, then all the other copies will be changed accordingly. They will be transformed accordingly. So you can see there that from the modify tab, you can always go back and access the operands, the original operands. And this will work with the scatter, but also with booleans. So when you need to create some more advanced shape, you have tools like Boolean or ProCutter or ProBoolean that they're going to create a final result starting from two different or more shapes. So you can like create more complex effects, more complex shapes and objects. So let's try to create here some compound objects with the Boolean. So I will use this cylinder here, and I need one more objects to make it work with this, and they usually need to intersect in some way. They need to be near. So I'm going to create another cylinder, and well, I want to place it in a position where I can create a hole, and I can create it using another view so that it's oriented in another way. So I can use like front view or side view, or I can use autogrid. Now autogrid will place the object that I'm creating exactly on the face that I want. So I either use autogrid, or I can use also move and place, which we saw before, but autogrid also will do the job. You can see it's basically creating a construction plane or a grid where I will click, and it's going to take that face that is right there, that polygon, and it's going to create something perpendicular to that polygon. This is how autogrid is working. So again, the alternative is to create move and place, or select and rotate and select and place. So you can see there, if you click and move, it's going to be placed perfectly on a polygon or a face perpendicularly to that face or to that polygon. So these are really handy tools that you can use to this is the rotate and based on that position right there. So select and rotate. You can also use local and world coordinates to help you rotate things or you can see also here, I want to push that cylinder inside the chamfer cylinder. So it's better that I use the local and not the world position, because this is going to be harder to do it. So I'm going to do local, and you can see now it's aligned to my object. It's using the local coordinates. So the Z is pointing towards, and I'm going to use the Z to place this perfectly inside my cylinder right there. There you go. So these two objects now are intersecting, and depending on how I place one and the other, I'm going to have a different result. Now I can also copy the object, or I can clone it. When I create a copy, it's going to be two independent copies. When I do an instance, they are going to be related. But we're going to do that example later. So if I clone these, as an instance, we're gonna see what's gonna be later. So first one is gonna be independent, the second one is gonna be related to the other instance. So if I change the radius of the first, you can see that it's gonna affect the instance, but not the copy. So the copy stays independent, the instance will be related to the other copies. This is the main difference there. Just to explain to you what it means, we're gonna also work later with the instances. Now let's go with the Boolean. You can use Boolean or Pro Boolean, they're really similar, so you can just try with one or the other. Now we are set to union, which means that when I'm gonna add operands, they are gonna be united to the geometry, which is the chamfer cylinder. If I set this to be subtract and I click add, this is gonna be subtracted from the original geometry. And this is how I can create my Boolean there. Now you can always change the type of interaction, so that could change from a subtraction to an intersection. So this means that only the parts that are in common will stay in the view, will stay visible, the others not. If you do union, everything is going to be united. If you do subtract, you're going to subtract. So you can also mix things together there. And then you also have merge and attach and other like secondary operations that you can test. Just go there, pick the operands that you want and run some tests. Now, if I change the operands, you can see that if I change the size, it's going to change the size of the hole. So with the modify panel, I can always go back to the original operands. So I can select one particular operand and change it. So right now I'm using the chamfer cylinder. So I can change the size of that chamfer cylinder, but those holes stay there. So I'm just addressing here the chamfer cylinder. And I can also turn them on and off. I can move them, rotate, scale. They can see here. You're gonna change real time the effect of that operand. So this is really helpful when you need to place a hole or another operands inside another object. So you can scale it, you can move it, you can rotate it. Now if I move it with the local coordinates a little bit, there is not going to create a hole, it's going to create, you can see there just like a shelf inside, just a little bit inside, not the total subtraction. So you can see how many primitives we have, how many objects we have in 3ds Max available. So we can really create a lot of different objects inside the software. But if you're not satisfied, we can also import. We're going to import from external resources anytime. We already saw how to do that. We're going to make also other examples. So let's see some of these models from other websites. So this Polyhamen is an excellent website. It has nice 3D models that we can import. And I'm gonna pick here. And you can see they come with taxes as well. So with materials and taxes. So if I select this ship, for example. Now, if you have only Blender file, you need to open it up in Blender and then export it in a format that is going to be compatible with 3ds Max. But since I have the FBX, that's going to be fine. GLTF, also you have to open it with Blender and export it in FBX. FBX, it's good. So FBX usually contains information about the materials, about the animation, everything you need. So we can download FBX and use it to import it in our scene. And we can also see here the author, the licenses, and other objects that we want to try. go for the FBX if it's available. So you have a lot of models here that are always updated, and you can use those totally for free. Now here in Sketchfab, it's another website. We can select, for example, CC0, CC BY to have less restrictions, and you will find a lot of downloadable assets here as well. You can see how many, and for example, if I want to download this, I click there and see the format. So if I go there to download 3D model, I can see here that there is the FBX, so this is good. But sometimes you only have GLTF. In that case, we need to open it in Blender again and export it. We can also see the information about triangles, vertices, and we can see if it's too heavy. Now, Turbo Squid, again, we have some search filters. So we can search with formats, with specific formats, if we want, or just any format there, but let's always make sure that we will find it in FBX or OBJ. So when you find the model, you just go there to import, and you can just select the format from here, and you can see how many formats 3ds Max supports. So make sure that you have in one of these formats. The most popular are OBJ, FBX. You also have SketchUp files if you want to import directly from SketchUp. Sometimes these are direct imports, like for some of these software right here. You can import from Revit, and for all other formats that are not supported, again, I suggest you open it up in Blender, like GLTF. You can open it up in Blender and then export in FBX format. And if you want, you will find a video guide in our channel. So just search for it and find it. And you will find also an entire video course in Blender. So I'm gonna bring in the ship here and see if everything is going fine. Otherwise, I need to go and link all the textures. So I'm going to select the ship just as an example of an external file. Open it up. It's gonna show me this panel here. So I can select if I want geometry, if I want. I can also have some presets there on the top. And here, some tabs that can help me to choose if I want to import geometry, animation, cameras, lights. So all those things can be supported by 3ds Max. And there you have some presets for some specific software. So import and just wait. Bigger is the mesh. The more polygons you have, the more you need to wait. And there it is. This is our ship in all its parts, with all its materials and all its different textures. So we don't need to do anything here. Everything has been imported perfectly without any issue. So FBX, it's a great format that you can use if you don't find a native 3ds Max file. And you can see the complexity of that. But just think of those as each single element started from a primitive, and then it was like modeled with a Boolean or something like that, or with polygon modeling that we're gonna see later on. So this will be all for this lesson. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.